I don't have time for this bullshit.
Ha! Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. All this guy ever does is BS. Anyway, it's time for another edition of BSing with Big Nate.
Aseity with Silent Whispers. Welcome into another edition of BSing with Big Nate. I am joined today by Aseity. I've got Monica and Rob here ready to chat with me. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about that track. I want to talk about the background on the band. I also want to talk about the fact that you guys really aren't that far from here, which is nice because lately it seems like I'm talking to bands from Texas. I had one from Israel last week. So it's nice to come back to a familiar turf with similar background. So first and foremost, that track, Silent Whispers, I want to get your impressions on the track. To me, it's a very mature, full track. Like, you know how they say wine gets better with age? Music to me, kind of with more layers, more complexity, gets better. It's the same thing. So I want to start with the background on the writing of the track and kind of putting it together.
Well, that starts with you though, because you're the one that wrote it. So he wrote it in like one day, the instrumentals and stuff.
so the musical side of it, I mean, so obviously I do a lot of the like behind the scenes business stuff and music, and Monica, it's her project, and it's this where she vocals, graphic design, the creative outlet aspect to it. So at least on the musical side of it, I don't know if this is going to be a question later on, but like just kind of the direction of like how we wanted to go a little heavier from our debut track. You know, we've connected with Taylor Barber, the feature, and he was, you know, releasing his EP in the earlier part of the year, well, back basically April. So just wanting to go a little heavier, but still keeping some of the melodic aspects of it, and kind of show everybody like the first song was like, let's kind of wean people in. It's a little bit of rock approachable, but like you can hear some metal riffs, like we can go metal. But then we were like, let's keep the rock like accessibility, but let's hit hard. And, you know, it's always for me, I'm a technical guitar player. I'm not like super techy, but I love my blend of like the heavier side, the groove chuggier side of it, so to speak, and like some actual musicality and riffage.
You're like a mix between Mark and Daniel.
I would say so. And that kind of bleeds into how Mark from Bella Maya, Daniel Gailey from Phineas Fit for a King, which is who produced Sound Whispers. And I'll leave it now to you for lyrical.
For lyrics. It took me like a month to write the lyrics. I just didn't really know at first like what I wanted the song to be about. So I just kind of like thought and did some digging and stuff like that. And so I basically wrote it about how like I've been treated like in the past by like bosses, mostly by men, past relationships, stuff like that. And how basically like they have tried to control me and like, you know, it's mostly like just oppression, and how I'm saying, okay, well, I might have like bent to your will, but I'm not going to do that anymore.
And there's a real power to the track, and even just from the title to me, that's something that stands out. Stuff that I've encountered in my past, that the silent whispers is there's that, and I mean, I can't say that I've experienced the same oppression, but I have witnessed it, and there is that just kind of beaten down, taking it, and you really feel like you're powerless, you're voiceless, and then to me, it kind of is. The song's like a roar, like I'm here. I'm not taking this shit anymore, and let's deal with it. So I do love that attitude. Yeah. I also love the lyric video. They're I feel like I remember when lyric videos kind of first became a thing, and they were pretty simple, but there's a lot going on with the visual aspects. What I really want to ask, and I was dying to ask the first, is that fake blood or fake oil? Like what is coming out of your mouth?
That is activated charcoal.
Okay. That
yeah,
makes
it's just like a capsule, and I just put it in my mouth and let it dissolve.
Okay, I couldn't figure out quite what it was because the way the colors are. I was like, maybe it's really dark fake blood. All right. How'd it taste?
It doesn't really taste like anything. It's like really gritty. And yeah, there's not really a taste to it. It's kind of nice.
From what I understand, it's good for your teeth as well. So.
Oh yeah, like I'll use it to like scrub my teeth occasionally. Like if I feel like I need to get extra coffee stains off or something, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a capsule of this, and you know, you just mix it with some water, and that's it.
So something else I want to dig into, Aseity as an entity. I know. From what I understand, it kind of started with you, Monica. It was your idea. And as Rob mentioned, you wanted it as that creative outlet. It's essentially kind of just the two of you as far as like songwriting goes, correct?
Right.
Now, and another thing that I noticed, this is a fairly young project. January of 2020, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about when I started.
So how does that feel, you know, starting in January and then March hits of 2020?
Oh, it was frustrating. But I mean, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because like I was able to focus more on getting everything started because like, job shut down and everything. So I was like stuck at home. So that kind of like gave me a chance to, figure everything out. So like I said, I think it was a blessing in disguise, even though at first I was kind of like, oh, great. Now this is going to be really difficult, but it worked. It ended up working out actually.
Yeah. And that's something that I've had conversations with a lot of musicians about is that, yes, there was no touring, not a lot of live shows, but that was the time to, get a lot done and really kind of hone your craft. So I'm particularly excited now that shows are, coming back and seeing what everyone's come up with. But how did Rob end up involved?
So I'm a part of a group called Music Mentors Online. It's run by David Puckett from We Came as Romans. And one of my old bandmates at the time, I'll backtrack a little bit. I originally started like looking at this as like a band. And that was not really working out because I would get a member or two and then they wouldn't, I don't know. It's like they weren't serious. So I'd end up kicking them out. So we had ended up posting on the Facebook group for MMO. And Rob had commented on there and he's like, hey, I'll help you guys. And because we were just like asking for advice. And he's like, hey, I'll help you guys. And he ended up becoming the songwriter. So it's kind of funny how that started.
It wasn't planned.
I mean, nothing good in life is necessarily planned. At least
Very true.
I find life to be improvisational. But when and I'll ask Rob this actually. When did you guys kind of know that it was going to click and work, and you guys really had that chemistry together?
So I think a lot of it comes from Monica and I seeing eye to eye on like the drive and passion side of it. Now, I mean, this is Monica's first project that she's been able to sort of get off the ground. She spent a lot of time working and training her vocals and stuff like that. I, on the other hand, am more the opposite. I've spent most of my time as a musician in bands. So I come with sort of the network connections and backgrounds where, I had that at my disposal. I record myself, I write myself, I have my own little studio set up. And playing numerous shows over the past decade, it was one of those things that we met. It was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. We're going to start from the jump instead of try to find our sound right off the bat and not stumble through for 3 to 5 years and figure it out. And we kind of knew what we were given. Monica's vocals being from Arkansas, she's influenced by Amy Lee of Evanescence. And I think that's very, that sticks out in the music, her vocal style. You don't really hear that in rock and metal these days. Evanescence is still, still existence, but they're the only ones of their kind, really. So, but having that in the metal genre, we knew that was going to be something different and special. But then, okay, you don't really hear technical riffage or like, so it's interesting, like blending the metal genre with having this larger than life powerhouse female vocalist that leads the charge.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the sound works incredibly well. And a little side note, the on the YouTube video, I was kind of looking through the comments, which you're never supposed to do, but I always do. Hell,
well,
yeah,
a lot of them are like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you sound kind of like Amy Lee was one of the comments. So it's really funny that Rob said that.
Yeah. It just makes sense. Monica's from Arkansas, so is Amy Lee. And, that's probably one of the biggest rock artists that comes out of Arkansas, honestly, at least to my knowledge.
Well, and I've been listening to them since I was like 10. So,
I grew up and that was my middle school too, amongst everybody else. So it's like, I always just like Evanescence was great, period. So I always like, I feel like in middle school, it was like you were either Evanescence or Paramore, and I was Evanescence.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? I'll go ahead and lump myself into the same camp. Easily one of the best shows I've ever seen live was Evanescence. There was Family Values of like 2007.
Yeah, they must have done it with Korn.
Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, she really is a powerhouse vocally. As are you, Monica. I don't want to talk about Amy Lee. We want to talk about you. Just waxing poetic about concerts. Last show I went to was Slayer, the final tour. So it was like 2019. So it's nice to wax poetic. I do want to ask what's next, you know, kind of where are you guys planning on going from here?
Well, actually, it's funny, we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Right now, we're in the process of getting the next song. As you probably have seen, that we're focusing on song at a time, just with resources and timing. It's better to give everyone a taste of our sound instead of 5 of the same sound, or just put a lot of money into a whole EP for only one song that people click to. It's just better to give everybody a taste and then give a bigger package as we grow as a band. People grow with us, so to speak. They're not growing with an album, 2 albums, listening to it a year after it's released, they're listening to it as a song. So every song that we release, we try to put a lot of effort into it. And we're currently in our, production we're more in the stages of like getting this to the producer's hands. We write a bunch of ideas, we demo a bunch of ideas, we come up with melodies and stuff like that, and try to take our time with it, because we're not going into a studio like a lot of bands do. I have everything right there, so I just go there, track everything, and demo it out, back and forth with Monica, and then with producer, and then we release that. So we're definitely in the process of getting this next song in producer's hands and planning the video.
And you built me a fancy vocal booth.
Yeah. So.
I mean, that's a luxury that
yeah, it's nice.
If I had a vocal booth, at home, I don't know that anyone would ever see me. So, totally get it. Yeah, I think that's a really carefully considered approach, and I think with kind of the ADHD mentality of listeners now, where kind of everything's a Spotify or Pandora playlist, and it just kind of bounces around. I think that's a really good approach, a really solid approach. And then, once 12 are out there, you just put them together as an album and then release a physical copy. That's what I would do. I have no background in music business. I probably have no business in the music business, but I think that's a really solid approach. So we definitely are looking forward and going to keep an eye out. Where can they find you online?
Pretty much every social media platform. The website is called aseityband.com, and we're on Facebook. Usually, like, if you search like the little @ symbol Aseity official, then you'll probably find us. But Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which Rob does those two. Yeah. So
we do have a link tree that we can send, and you can just kind of go everywhere to, we have our YouTube and all the other socials there.
I'll go ahead. We'll link the link tree. If you're watching on Facebook, it's probably above. YouTube, it's below. And give Aseity some love. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.